a choice to keep the current districts or adopt maps to counter the actions of MAGA extremists in Texas who are obediently working to tip the scales for President Trump. Despite the minority party's hypocrisy and their attempts to confuse the narrative with sound bites and tweets, the truth is clear, that the maps are based on the work, comments, and hearings of the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, which is a bipartisan commission. In hearings over the last few days, I was actually very shocked to learn of the minority party's well-timed epiphany, that independent redistricting commissions are actually beneficial to voters and democracy. Well, what do you know? This timely awakening of the Republican Party is actually very surprising, given that members of the party have voted against redistricting bills and reform bills for independent redistricting on at least 30 different occasions over the last 14 years in this state. I'm hopeful that my colleagues across the aisle will use their newfound enthusiasm for redistricting reform to reach out to their colleagues and to the president in DC. If you have his number in your phone book, please call him and demand that they adopt these commissions nationwide and stop the president's illegal gerrymandering efforts so we can shelve the bill and get back to serving our constituents and the daily needs that they have. As this body is now on the same page on the value of the Independent Redistricting Commission, I think it's important to highlight how the temporary maps described in this bill are grounded in the Commission's work. The adjustments in the maps are as follows. Again, they were supported by maps and testimony submitted by the public, commissioner testimony, and draft or completed commission maps. They also include 8 districts that will be identical to the lines drawn by the commission. And as I mentioned over and over again in committee, over 76% of Californians will actually be in their same congressional district. 58% of the maps in this bill are changed by less than 20%, and 37% are changed by less than 10%. The Redistricting Commission that completed the work and was rooted and the maps that are rooted in this work was comprised of 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, and 4 no-party preference individuals who did the hard work to create over 76% of the maps you see in this bill, demonstrating the real independence and nonpartisanship that informed the original maps and guided these temporary maps. Members, the greatest consequence for us today is inaction. Today, the decks are stacked against us, so what we have to do is fight back. We know that right now, President Trump is gutting vital programs and increasing economic uncertainty and chaos to some of our most vulnerable Californians. Medicaid cut $1 trillion over the next decade, with California at risk of losing $28 billion in federal funding. That puts 3.4 million Californians at risk. 3.1 families will lose SNAP food assistance benefits, mostly children. Billions will be cut from classrooms and institutes of higher learning. UCLA is being ransomed by President Trump now for $1 billion. This is what we're talking about here. California stands to lose so much more. Over $7.8 billion in lost tax revenue due to the Trump tax tariffs. And the list goes on, and our communities absolutely deserve better. What do? Just sit back and do nothing? Or do we fight back and provide some chance for our Californians to see themselves in this democracy? And while the minority party will continue to misdirect and misinform the public today with dramatic ties and cries about transparency, process, and rush timelines, the truth is that they hold the power to stop all of this. It's very clear. You all hold the power to stop this today. And again, actions do have consequences. And if the Republican Party truly wanted to stop these temporary maps, again, you have the power to do so. And by voting against this today, that means you are unwilling to stand up against a dictator, a leader that has taken so much from our most vulnerable constituents, regardless if they live in Republican or Democratic districts. Again, I will close by sharing that AB 604 is a temporary solution that provides California voters with the final say so that we don't tip the scales and allow this unchecked power to continue. This is how we fight back and protect our democracy. I respectfully request an aye vote on this bill.
Thank you. Senator Blakespear, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, we could debate many details here today, but here's the bottom line. Republicans are trying to cheat to win congressional midterm elections under their unpopular president, and Democrats are fighting back. This is about trying to level the national playing field so we can have something close to fair elections for Congress in 2026. Period. Full stop. Republicans are trying to corrupt democracy. Democrats are trying to honor it. Republicans can say what they want, but their party started this madness, racing to gerrymander in Texas and other Republican-controlled states to stack the deck for themselves in next year's election. Yes, it is lamentable that we are pausing California's superior process for drawing districts through a nonpartisan citizen commission that was started 17 years ago. But that was a different political time, under different political circumstances, and it was a different electorate. We're giving the voters a choice to be politically relevant. It would be naive and foolish to stick to an old model, an old set of rules, when Texas and likely other Republican states are rewriting the rules to rig the game. The Trump administration has made clear in all of its actions that it believes might makes right, that it has no respect for the U.S. Constitution, the separation of powers, the courts, or the democratic process. Corrupting our elections is the first step toward fake elections. Donald Trump is trying to remake America in Russia's image. Total control, no dissent, no democracy, fake news, and fake elections. What did we learn at the outset of the Second World War? That aggressors and bullies take whatever you give them. There is no appeasing them. The only way to counter aggressors and bullies and wannabe autocrats like Donald Trump is to challenge them and to fight them straight up. There are many decent people in this chamber, both Democrats and Republicans. All of us are committed to serving constituents and doing what's best for California. We do have our disagreements on policy and on politics, and we work through them as best we can to serve the people who elected us. But today's debate is not about California politics. It's about national politics. It's about owning up to the realities of the national political landscape and a Republican president who will stop at nothing to consolidate power, including corrupting congressional midterm elections. And we in California cannot stand idly by and do nothing. And with that, I am proud to be a strong aye for this measure.
Thank you. Senator Strickland, you are recognized at your desk.
Questions for the author?
Will the author take a question?
Absolutely.
It was stated that Governor Newsom announced that this legislation and ballot measure has an explicit goal of electing more Democrats in response to Texas redistricting. Would you therefore agree with Governor Newsom that the predominant purpose, why we're here today, of this constitutional amendment is to redraw these maps to elect more members of the Democratic Party to the House of Representatives?
Through the President. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the question. I would say again, Texas started this. It is very clear. And when our democracy is at stake, has been mentioned, when there are millions of people in California that will be kicked off of Medicaid and kicked off of SNAP benefits because of your party's control, we absolutely have to react. And that means doing this bill today, AB 604. And that means ensuring that the voters of California in November have a say. They will have a say ultimately.
Okay, so it sounds like the answer is yes. Another question for the author.
Just a moment. Excuse me. Will the author take another question?
Yes.
You may proceed.
Did you use the 2020 census to draw these maps?
Through the President, thank you for the question again. Over 76% of the maps that you see here today are based off of the 2020 Redistricting Commission, which is a bipartisan commission that we all like to praise, and I'm hopeful that at the end of this that we actually get your side of the aisle to support a nationwide independent redistricting commission plan. Provisions of that are included in the ACA 8, which will be taken up later today, and that is the hope, is that we can do that. But yes, absolutely, it's over 77%. There's minor tweaks to this bill, as been mentioned, or to the previous maps has been mentioned.
So it sounds like the answer is yes. They used the 2020 census because I found it interesting. I'll get to that later. Another question for the author.
Will the author take
Yes.
the third question?
Under current law, the legislature cannot draw the lines, but it's been reported this week that the legislature draw the lines, but no member of either body of the Senate or Assembly has said they participated in drawing these lines. One, did you draw these lines or had any influence on these lines? And two, what member of the legislature participated in drawing these lines?
You may proceed.
Thank you. Again, the legislature has the constitutional right to send an amendment to the voters, which will be doing later today. And the voters will have the ultimate say. The maps have been online since Friday evening, a very public process, which in the Assembly and the Senate both had portals. Thank you to the election chairs, the good senator from Riverside, as well as the good Assembly member from the Central Coast, providing a ton, the maps online on Friday, and soliciting thousands of responses, which folks can do even today. And in fact, what was stated in the committee as well is that the voters now will have over 70 days to actually, before they make a vote, hit the ballot box on November 4th, will have over 70 days to view these maps, which is incredible. It's actually many times more than the current redistricting process we have through the Independent Redistricting Commission, which only allows 14 days. So that is the current process as it stands now.
Okay. Thank you for an answer, because under the current Constitution, no member is allowed to adjust these lines. So my next question for the author.
Will the author take a fourth
Yes.
question?
Who has seen these maps in the legislature before they were introduced in the legislature, and when did you see them the first time?
Again, Friday they were all available publicly online. The Assembly, the Senate provided opportunity for the public to see these maps. And you have what we have now. There were slight tweaks made and amendments this past Monday, which we all debated. And now we're in the midst of continuing to view those maps and solicit input from the public. And again, ultimately, the California voters will vote on this.
A follow-up question on that same. So is your testimony or your statement here today that no member of the legislature saw these maps before they were public?
Again, I will reiterate that these maps were available publicly on Friday, and we had the ability, all of us, to solicit our residents and provide additional, they had the ability to provide additional input. And so that's what we're doing today. And what we're not talking about, unfortunately, is the fact that, you know, Texas has continuously gerrymandered mid-cycle. Texas has every single year since 1965 violated the Voting Rights Act. Every single time. We're going down a rabbit hole here on transparency and all of the procedural matters, but what's not included here is the reaction that Texas, your colleagues in Texas, have continuously violated the Voting Rights Act, have continuously mid-cycle gerrymandered. It's unfortunate.
So on my own time, it sounds like the statements today is that no member of this legislature saw these maps before they were public, and we all know that's not true, and I'm encouraging the media to follow up with every member of the legislature, because under current Constitution, not one member on this in this body, on either house, is allowed to adjust a map. And it was reported that there was different members that adjusted these maps, and if you wanted to do it correctly, you should have gone to the people of California, get the authority, and then draw the maps. So any member here, let's be crystal clear, and I'm asking the media to follow up, any member here that adjusted these maps violated the Constitution today, and is, again, evasive answers that we know that now it just shows that there's no transparency, because no one can answer one member on this floor that had participated in drawing these maps. You say it's the legislature, you're the author, but you didn't have any participation in these maps? Again, That's not transparency, and I'm urging the media to follow up with each and every one of these members as this moves forward, if you get the 2/3 vote, which I believe you will, to ask these questions. Now, if I had the power, as was stated, by the way, I don't know one member of the Texas legislature, not one. I was elected here in California, not Texas. And it was stated in the opening, you have the power to shut this down. If I had the power to stop this, I would stop it. I'm telling the media right now, if the Republicans in California had the power to stop this, we would stop this today. And they are misrepresenting what is the actual truth moving forward. Redistricting Commission, let's make it clear, the redistricting, nonpartisan redistricting commission.
Senator Strickland, if you can please address the body and not the media when you're speaking.
I'm looking around my other colleagues. I could look around my whole.
Excuse me, Senator Strickland.
I'm only allowed to look forward?
Please look at me while you are making your address. Thank you.
That's a new rule that I haven't heard of before.
I would appreciate if you comply.
I've been here over a decade.
Everything is through the presiding officer. Thank you.
It is through the presiding officer.
Exactly. So if you can direct your comments to me, or if you have a question, you can direct it to me.
Let's be clear.
Excuse me.
Okay.
If you have a question, you can direct it to that member, but if you're speaking, please direct it to the presiding officer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's be clear. It was stated in the opening that the redistricting, nonpartisan redistricting commission drew these lines and these maps. That's a false. They might have took it as a blueprint, but the nonpartisan redistricting commission did not draw these maps as it was stated in the opening. Again, people are trying to be misled of what this actually is. And members, this week's actions demonstrate why we need a nonpartisan Citizens Redistricting Commission and why it was passed in the first place. For my colleagues on the other side, who I deeply respect, sometimes I believe you think the ends justify the means. Let's go through what happened this week with no transparency, no input from the community across the state to draw these maps. And these maps were drawn behind closed doors with the governor and what I understand, legislative leadership, and no one admits that they had any participation in these maps. They just came out of thin air. But again, let's look what happened this week in terms of transparency. You violated your own rule, the 30-day rule, to push this through. No one will admit that they drew these maps. And to the media, I'm saying you need to move forward, as this moves forward, to the famous line, what did they know and when did they know it? Which lawmakers saw these maps and had influence on these maps? Who paid for these maps? And the lack of transparency keeps going on and on and on. Let's see what we have here today, currently, before you go to the voters in November. What we have here today is the gold standard for redistricting nationally. It should be the national model and not thrown out. It's something that we should brag about here in the state of California, the fact that the people pick the lines, not the politicians. We have full transparency. In fact, we have hundreds of hearings throughout the state of California, in every corner of the state of California, so citizens can participate in the drawing of these maps that keep communities together of whole cities and counties. And the lines are drawn in public in front of everybody, in front of the world. Members, fair districts lead to fair representation. And if you pass this bill moving forward, and if it passes in November, which I don't believe it will, but if it does, what you're striving for is predetermined elections, meaning that there won't be one competitive race for Congress in California for the next 3 cycles. Members, that's not good for Democrats, independents, and Republicans. You're taking the voice away from Californians in terms of having fair representation and earning the trust of your voters, not having a predetermined election. Here in California, we have a system where citizens pick the representatives and not politicians picking the citizens. That's what you want to throw away. And what I heard from many of my colleagues on the other side, this is going to be temporary. From my experience, I have over a decade of experience here, nothing is temporary when you do it. Former President Ronald Reagan said it best: "We have long discovered that nothing lasts longer than a temporary government program." Even this week, the Assembly Elections Chair stated that the Democrats should do what we're doing here today in 2030, was quoted already. So when you say to the people of California, this is temporary, my experience is nothing's temporary here. I don't believe 1 second that this will be temporary, and neither should the people of California. Now, I do have a joint resolution 10. It's not up yet. I'll put it across the desk. But it says we should have nonpartisan redistricting districts and make it a model nationwide. I do believe it is wrong for Texas to do this. I do believe it's wrong for Illinois to do this. I do believe it's wrong for every other state where the politicians pick their citizens. It is wrong, both on the Democrat and Republican side. We should be promoting what we do here in California, not throwing it away. And that's what you're going to do if this is successful. You're going to take what is the national model for redistricting and put power in the people, and you're going to take it back to put in the power of the politicians, so you don't have to really earn the vote of your constituents because the election will be predetermined. I also support Congressman Kevin Kiley's legislation that bans mid-decade redistricting nationwide. Members, I heard that Speaker Pelosi and other Democrats from the DCCC from California were here. What would be more constructive is that you jump on board to Kevin Kiley's bill, pass it on the national level, and therefore we won't have mid-decade redistricting. So members, again, going back to the census, 2020, there's been massive population shifts since 2020. And when you look at these maps, for example, Los Angeles has lost representation in the last 5 years, but under these maps, they pick up a seat. The Inland Empire has gained population over the last 5 years, but they lose a seat. And it's very clear in federal law that these districts have to be equal in representation. So if you use the 2020 census, as was stated here before us, this will be thrown out by courts because it is very crystal clear that the deviation that you have when you draw congressional districts is very, very small. And members, you know this is wrong. You know what you're doing today is wrong. You know it's not good for democracy in California. And you weren't elected by anybody. You weren't elected by the people of Illinois. You weren't elected by the people of Texas. You weren't elected by the people of New York or North Carolina. You were elected by the people of California. And you were elected to defend the Constitution. The Constitution, again, I believe my colleagues, whether you knew it or not, violated the oath of the Constitution that you swore to. And I do believe, I understand, but the ends don't justify the means. You know this is bad for independents, Democrats, and Republicans throughout the state of California. I want you to look deep inside your soul, and you know this is wrong moving forward. You know this is not good for democracy in California, and I'm urging your no vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, may I respond? So,
Would you like to respond in your close?
I can do that too, but I just wanted to make sure that it was known, if I may, just to refute some of the misinformation that had been put out.
Can you hold on for just one moment?
You're going to respond to every speaker?
Senator Gonzalez, unless someone has asked you a specific question, which there was not a question, we're going to have you use those in your close.
Okay.
Senator Nielo, you are recognized at your desk.